Hi, everyone. Because I know that you are all spending your valuable time with us watching this session today, I'll be brief. Those of you who know me know that I've been in the attractions industry for close to 50 years. So it's as much a part of my life and almost as dear to me as my wife Patty, my 2 daughters, and my 5 grandchildren. So when IAAPA asked me about the future of the attractions industry, my answer was very simple. I'm optimistic. I always have been, and I always will be. But since we were given the next little while to talk to you today, and my answer was so very short, I thought we'd use our remaining time to hear from people for whom I have the greatest respect. My colleagues at JRA, our clients, and our industry friends.
What has been the toughest part about the last year for you, for your business, for your clients, or for your guests?
I think for our business in particular, the hardest challenge is we had a lot of momentum going into when COVID started. We had one of our best attendance years rolling along. We had some great in-person programming we were launched that we were taking to the next level. So there was this huge disruption, and all of that had to go by the wayside.
Just 2 weeks before the mandated shutdown at the beginning of the pandemic, the National Comedy Center was named the best new museum in the country by USA Today. And now that we're back open, I think the hardest thing about the last year, especially for our staff, has been not being able to see the smiles and see the laughter. Of course, everyone's wearing masks and they're still laughing, but not being able to see the smiling faces, I think, has been a challenge.
When you think about what it's like for a family to have to go out in normal times, right? To get the kids in the car, load it up, hit the road, travel, stay somewhere, go somewhere. But then when you add the masks and the sanitizer and the social distancing and everything else that it took to go out into the world again, and to know that they jumped through all those hurdles to come to your attraction, and they would walk through our doors, and it meant the world to us.
I think the hardest thing for everybody, honestly, has been the fear. I mean, some of us have lost people close to us. Some of us have lost our livelihood. We've all lost our sense of certainty and our trust in the organizations that we rely on.
Being in the Philippines, you're used to tragedy. It's like it comes all the time in different kinds, whether it's a natural disaster or some government mishap or some tragedy in field trips or whatever. It always comes. So we're quite used to tragedies, but this big uncertainty that you don't know when it's going to end, for everyone, for the team, for the guests, it was the biggest challenge. How do you deal with uncertainty?
You know, down here in Houston, when some big event happens, it's more than likely a natural event. It's like a hurricane. And we can always see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, we're going to get through the worst part of it. And then in another week or so, after we've cleaned up and repaired things, we can start to heal and move on. But with the virus and the pandemic, we couldn't see the ending.
To literally stop functioning or stop operating for a full year is very difficult. It's going to be difficult to ramp up. It's difficult to know what to do and how to maintain that staff and how to maintain your brain trust while you're working through that. Some people can work from home when you're closed. You have to do some things, but in general, you're just dead in the water. And that is, quite frankly, exhausting.
In 40 years or so of our history, the first time that we had no choice but to close for 3 months to comply with the government's what we call circuit breaker measures. I mean, our government made a very decisive decision to say, okay, let's all shut down, control our movement, minimize. And within very short notice, we have to quickly clear the science center, put up all the signages, and so on and so forth. And I also remember I had to clear our gift shop's ice cream because we couldn't leave the ice cream there. So I told my staff, all ice cream on me. So they all cleared the place, took all the way the ice cream and distributed to families and all that before we shut down. So that was very challenging for us. And of course, the uncertainty of when we could open up again kept us away from one another. We actually worked from home, and working from home was quite challenging.
As entertainers, working in isolation is a little against the grain. When we work amongst ourselves at the office, we feed off of each other. It's a creative atmosphere. The office becomes a kind of hub. It's a community that we all work at. We meet one another. We tell jokes to one another. We give the latest information, but we also go out and adventure into the world and discover things. And we bring all that back to each other. And when we work together in community, face to face, all this is very easy to do. But when we work in isolation, it's just that much harder.
How has the last year changed the way you work or the way that you run your business?
I think over the last year, we've really changed our mindset to focus dual path, both on how do we properly and efficiently operate the business as it is today, as well as scaling and rebuilding the business as our guests begin to come back in greater numbers and the industry and our business specifically returns to growth.
I don't use the word that'll never happen again because we just went through this devastating experience. So I caution myself on making promises of things that will happen. We always have to bracket it with as long as things don't change.
We've launched a whole new virtual initiative with virtual programs. We offer 11 programs at this time. We connected with new partners to this that in new ways, or old partners in new ways, where we used to partner with the YMCA and they would come to the museum. Now we've provided after school programming for them all last fall through virtual.
This past year has forced us to be very clever and creative are two words that really come to mind. We've had, again, adjust is a word you heard me use before. You're going to continue to hear me again. We have been constantly adjusting throughout this whole past year as to how we exercise our business. So many of our brands have licenses internationally, and we now can't travel. So we have to figure out on the fly, how do we adjust to being able to supervise these projects to make sure that guests are getting a quality experience.
Communication has always been imperative to our success. And I think it's been more important than ever now that we're working miles apart from each other. And we've had to find a lot of new creative ways to make sure that our team is staying connected with each other, that we're staying connected with our partners and with our colleagues across the studio. And, we've been doing a lot of work collaboratively, real time in applications. We've taken virtual site walks on projects. We've got daily check-ins that are scheduled, virtual lunches, coffees, we're using messaging apps. I mean, all of these types of ways of working have really been vital to doing business. And I think the other big thing is just having transparency with each other and with our partners throughout the pandemic. That's really allowed us, I think, to continue to be nimble and effective and keep things moving even when the world around us keeps changing so unpredictably.
As we look at going forward, something that doesn't change is being people, product, and strategy ready.
I think the creative spark, because we cannot travel to visit attractions, we cannot go to visit the parks. This will kind of became our creative spark, right? That's a downside, I think. Yeah.
We've always really looked at our business across a long-term horizon, right? The location-based experience business is really important to always have a long-term view on where the business is going, because all these attractions and things that we talk about building and operating are going to be around, hopefully well past our times in these positions. And so I think while there was a lot of uncertainty that we had to face throughout this past year, it really didn't take our eye off the prize of really trying to always take a viewpoint of what's going to be viable and successful 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and what's going to be in vogue, right? So ultimately, I think the global pandemic just reinforced our viewpoint that we need to continue to take a long-term approach to the business and not to have any knee-jerk reactions that could adversely impact not only us, but also our partners.
Trying to create that healthy barrier that I think is really important for my life, at least, and knowing like, okay, it's time to work and it's time to go home, even though home's sitting like it's right there.
Decades from now, when people look back on this moment in time, what do you hope they say about the attractions industry and how we've handled this adversity?
I hope that people say that the attractions industry didn't just survive the pandemic, but that we used it as an opportunity to thrive, that we came back stronger than ever, that we've made meaningful and enduring changes that enhanced the safety and the well-being of our guests, that we introduced new initiatives that increased the diversity, equity, and inclusion of our organizations and our offerings, and that we did some of our very best creative thinking and introduced some of the most innovative and delightful attractions ever imagined. And I say that because I think that we're going to be entering a time when the world needs joy and an escape from reality more than ever.
I think what they'll say is how quickly the attraction industry responded to the pandemic. And I look to the attraction industry and IAAPA to find out, what can I do and what can we do to help get our museum ready so that we can have guests come back.
Someone I greatly admire called this adversity and this period of time our Mount Everest. And I think that is so poignant and true. It's going to be difficult to get up, challenging, emotional, but once we get to the other side, the pride, the satisfaction that we will have with every battle scar and all the fatigue, we will know that we got through it and that we're stronger for it, and we'll have a very great sense of our resiliency.
The audible ready, being ready at the line, and you got to be able to change. And I think that from my perspective, when I look at that, that's what we, when people look back and say, well, what did they do? It was how we managed and how we got through it and how we were, as an industry, adaptable.
You look at some of the great innovations that have happened across the space, and it really comes back to when they say necessity is the mother of all inventions. Because I really can't think of a better time when our industry had to really adapt through uncertainty, unprecedented challenges, to really find new ways to operate and think through the innovation of how can you still bring experiences to life, create operational efficiencies and other creative ways of working. And so my hope is that when we look back on this 12 months, what we're going to see is that there was a tremendous amount of innovation, not only just on the attractions space and new types of ways to experience, just overall environments, but actually we became more efficient and better at what we do on a day-to-day basis.
I hope they say that we managed to find a way to change it for the better, that we come out the other side of this being more relevant rather than less relevant, that we took the time to figure out what things would work moving forward. I would assume that in the next 10 years, this is going to sit in people's memories, and they're going to understand that these sorts of things could happen in their world. How are we going to be ready for it? How are we going to transform ourselves?
I hope people say that we were smart, that we were considerate, and that we were helpful.
We reprioritized, we regrouped, and we came together, and we overcame. And I think we'll all be stronger for it.
There is no question that this period of time is going to be thought of throughout history as fundamentally changing and fundamentally reshaping the business and the operations. At the end of the day, what I think is really most important is that we've managed through this. We've survived, the business recovered, but we did it in the way that really took care of our employees and our associates and continue to deliver a great experience for our guests.
What is one word that you would describe your thoughts on the future?
The show must go on. It's not one word. I could say prevail or overcome or triumph, but the curtain has to go up at 8 o'clock. So we got to get the show on the road.
Better. And by better, I just don't mean some boring better, but with a learned thing that we got into this mess because the old way really sucked.
I'm hoping that after this time that we've learned, some valuable lessons in terms of mitigating the impact of these occurrences in the future. So I think hopeful is one word I would describe the future.
It's really hard to capture it in one word. I thought of words like optimistic, bright, beautiful, and I think they all apply. I think that our future is yet to be written. It's going to be told by us, and I think after everything we've just gone through, the opportunities are endless.
Honestly, it's hopeful. I think we've been tested in a way we didn't expect, and we didn't measure up at times, but what we have done is come together. Whether it's our work or pandemic, people need to be close. Like, human connection is what we do. And the year spent apart from the people we care about most and just the people that we regularly take for granted has shown how much we need to share experiences, how much we need to do the things to build the memories to last a lifetime, the human connection between all of us.
Confident. I'm not just optimistic, I'm not just hopeful, I am confident that we are going to get through this.
Excited.
Actually, there's two words that if I am allowed, I will say is that hope and happiness.
The word I would use to describe future is progress.
The answer is experience. It's one of the hardest experience, one of the most interesting experience, one of the most teaching experience that we ever had in each and every aspect. We came to learn many things. Somebody says that you learn to win when you learn how to lose.
Thanks to IAAPA for giving us this opportunity, and thanks to our industry colleagues for participating. But most importantly, thank you to our JRA team for braving the storm that's been this last year.